And good evening, everyone. ESS, Empire State Sports, proudly presents the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. Your host tonight, Joey Ream, Dave Bartlett, myself, Pete Gosselin, and our special guest from the Courier Observer, Al St. Pierre. Welcome to the program, Al.
Evening. Good to see you guys.
Yep.
You too.
First of all, I want to thank you for the write-up in the paper on us. We really appreciate that. Getting a little word out on us, so we really appreciate that. It seems to hit. It's been hitting some good numbers, so we want to thank you for that.
Hey, that's what we're here for, right? Cooperation.
Right, we're all on the same team. So
yeah, exactly. No.
Yeah, Al, a lot of people don't know about you. Obviously, some people on the show, most of the North Country knows you, but a lot of people that don't follow the North Country that still listen to our show would like to know a little bit more about you. So why don't you give us a little synopsis of where you've been in life, where you are now? How's that?
Okay. Well, my journey started in Drummondville, Quebec. I was born there in 1963. That's the same hometown as Marcel Dion and Yvonne Cornwallier, a couple of NHL greats. Then when I was about 6 months old, we moved to the States. My dad had a lot of family in a place called Crown Point, New York, which is over by Westport, right on Lake Champlain. Actually, the farm that we lived next to, my uncle's farm was right on Lake Champlain, and then the backdrop was the Adirondack Mountains, which I didn't realize at the time when I was a little kid. But when we went back to visit in my adult years, I'm like, wow, this is a beautiful area. And then we moved to Ogdensburg, New York in 1966. We lived right in the city, right across from St. Mary's Church, in a park. It was right Hamilton Park right there. And then after a couple years, my dad bought a dairy farm out on 812 by the airport. And that's where I was raised pretty much. Went to school in Ogdensburg, went to the little Catholic school, Bishop Conroy. My sixth grade class was the last sixth grade class there. In the time that I was at Bishop Conroy, from first to sixth grade, they knocked down St. Mary's Academy. I don't know if you guys remember St. Mary's Academy. They were big rivals with OFA back in the day for sports and things like that. And then I went out to OFA, graduated from OFA in 1980. From there, I went to McGill University for 5 years. I studied film and communications. Shortly after I got out of college, it was pretty obvious I wasn't going to be a dairy farmer anymore. And Dad recommended I go talk to an old family friend, Chuck Kelly, who, when I was growing up, we literally lived right around the corner from each other. So I go way back with him. And sure enough, I went down, interviewed for just a reporter's job in Ogdensburg at the Journal. I got that. Within a few months, I moved right up the ladder. I did obituaries and police, cop reports, all that stuff. And then eventually I was the city government reporter here in Ogdensburg. And that was a big deal, which is kind of a lost thing now. But all our little towns had their own little reporters. And for a while, that was my beat. And, with Chuck as my boss and Jim Reagan, those guys made sure I was doing my job and got involved with city politics a little bit, got to be on the journalism side of things and protecting the, Constitution from that end of things. So that was kind of a baptism of fire for me for journalism, believe it or not. Little city politics are just as intense, maybe more so than national or international politics when you really get down into them. Then after that, I kind of burned out, 20 months of that, and I burned out. I was trying to do too much. And then from there, I took a summer off, did some contracting laborer work. And then in October of '87, I saw an ad in the paper for the Watertown Times. They needed a part-time sports guy. I went down, I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Bert Galt. I think he was the sports editor at the time, but he eventually became one of their managing and executive editors. I went down, interviewed. He called me the next day. I went back down, and I can remember seeing my application form. He had written down like my best qualification was that I could work, I could start work tomorrow. So, fortunately, so I got that job. And at the same time, they hired Greg Lipinski. I don't know if you guys know Greg. Greg worked as the full-time, back then they had a part-time guy and a full-time sports guy. And Greg Lipinski was from the Michigan area. He's the guy that does St. Lawrence University hockey play-by-play now. But he's also a teacher in I want to say the Potsdam or Canton School District. I can't remember. His daughters were really good athletes. His son too, Will. They were lacrosse players, things like that. But eventually I did that for a year. And I was sitting in the office in Canton one night, and I got a call from a gentleman named Joe Gray. And at the time, so that would have been like October of 1988. Joe was our editor of the Courier, the Messina, the Messina Observer, which was it came out twice a week. And at the same time, they had simultaneous sports reporters jobs opening up. The Potsdam paper needed a sports editor part-time, and then the Messina paper needed a sports editor part-time. So they just kind of merged those two jobs into one. It was still separate papers, but it was one position. And then from there, let me see. So that's October of '88. By May of 1989, we had merged the two papers into a morning daily, the Daily Courier Observer. And we were actually the first morning daily in St. Lawrence County. So that was kind of a big deal. Kept me busy. I can remember starting out and going to games at Potsdam or Messina, and people sitting there and wondering how can you stay so calm watching these games, because they were intense rivalries and things like that. I really learned how to be objective, through those experiences. But so that brings me to here. I've had that job. Technically, I've kind of gone full circle, because we're no longer a daily publication. We are daily on the internet through Northern New York 360, our website for Johnson newspapers. But our newspaper, the Courier Observer, is no longer daily. It comes out on Wednesdays and Fridays. Just to get back, the other newspaper was the Courier Freeman, and that was the weekly paper out of Potsdam.
Oh yeah.
So, so 33 years later, here I am, sitting here talking to you guys on the internet.
And 33 years later, the newspaper industry has really changed now.
Yes.
I mean,
yes, unquestionably.
And obviously you mentioned some legendary names in there, some staff and whatnot, but obviously I'm going to assume that the staff has been cut down, but the way you do your job now is probably a little bit differently now. Do you have to think in the website internet world more than hard copy paper world that when it comes to your reporting?
To me, it's not an internet or publication thing. It's an information job. I'm here to do my job. Change is, part of life. It's inevitable. And obviously over 33 years, I've seen, a lot of changes. But the basic core of my job is to provide information about, high school athletes. We concentrate more on the high school athletes because of, and summer rec leagues and things like that, because the colleges have their sports information departments. We do have Cap Carey, who he covers the college beat and stuff for us. But when we were opposing papers, competing papers, I really relied on guys like Gary Michael, Wally Johnson, Boyd Jones when he was at SUNY Potsdam. The SIDs there, they provided the information, whereas the high school coaches, Joe, you're an AD, you're not an SID, right? But you're a coach, and we rely on the coach right from day one. We've always relied on the coaches to call us or contact us. Whether I still prefer, ask Joey, I still prefer talking to the coaches by phone. A direct contact like that. When I was in college, I learned the difference between cold and hot media. I find the internet, Facebook, those kinds of things are more of a cold media, because you don't really know who's on the other side that you're talking to. When I'm on the phone, to me, that's a hot medium. I'm talking to somebody directly. I know it's Joe, or I know it's another coach. It's just, I've always, for my job particularly, the internet has been more of a tool. That's where I gather information. for a lot of things, or get tips and things like that. But like I said, we're in the information business, and right now the way information is sent out to people more than anything is through the internet. I still believe in the North Country that we're an older population. So that's keeping print editions vital up here. My mother doesn't sit down at the table and read her phone. She's 86 years old. She sits down and reads the paper, So we still have that that core of readers and things like that. But yeah, it's changed, obviously.
Well, and I'm thinking when I was younger, I couldn't wait to read the newspaper every day. Newspaper and radio especially were two big deals to me. I couldn't wait for my father to get home with the Watertown Times every night to look at whatever, mainly sports and the comics. But I couldn't wait to see the newspaper. And and then when you became an athlete yourself, you love to see your name, and so you couldn't wait to get the newspaper to see if Al St. Pierre or Ryan Martin or Joe Gray or whomever it was that was reporting on our games would mention your name. So, it is amazing how it's changed, though, because I think the kids nowadays don't realize that it's out in hard copy, that you could go get it in a hard copy.
Right. Try clipping out a picture from your iPhone. If you have the hard copy. But a couple guys I do want to mention that did teach me a lot about what I was doing. Dave Shea, obviously. When I was doing my city beat, I did a lot of night meetings, so I got to witness firsthand what it was like for Dave and Steve Heaton, those guys, to take scores at night. So, and then every once in a while I'd take one if I had to, but those guys really taught me a lot. And I think the biggest lesson I learned from Dave was as important as having the job and my title and things like that, it was always the names in the story that were more important than the name writing the story. That's what to me anyways, that was a focus of my job. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned Dave before. It's funny, we just said goodbye to John Goki. He retired July 31st was his last day. So put things in perspective for me. We're sitting there, and between the three of us, we had over 100 years of collective sports reporting for the North Country, and now it's down to me pretty much. I've whatever carried the baton or whatever you want to call it. But just in the 30 or so years that I've been involved, I mean, we used to type our stories on a monitor. We had to send them to another machine that set off the print, and then we were always hands-on. We physically cut the stories out and pasted them onto a page and around pictures and stuff like that. And then, I want to say in the late 90s, we got a program called BaseView they redid the entire computer system. And instead of going out back and cutting the pieces of paper into a puzzle, it was all done on the computer now. We sent out one page that was all done. So it was almost like a computer game for me when we did that transition. I think the biggest change, though, has been in photography. I go back to working in the darkroom. I can probably still pull out clothes from my closet that, my wife always asked me, how come you don't dress up when you go to work? It's like, well, you got in the darkroom, you're dealing with some pretty hardcore chemicals, and you got them on your clothes, and your clothes were ruined. But, looking back, that was a specialty art for us. You know what I mean? Like, if we could get 2 or 3 pictures from one game a night, we were pretty psyched. And now it's like, if I have less than 40, I'm pretty disappointed, and it's just all downloaded onto a computer. There are no chemicals involved. So, that's been the biggest change. For me.
And how easy is it now for Pete, Dave, and I to send you a photo? Just
exactly.
Hey,
right.
And just, hey, here's something. Yeah. We covered it for you. Here's a photo of it.
And I always thought that was something special for our, making pictures and printing them and doing it in the dark room, and coming out with one really nice picture. That was something, because there weren't that many. It's like trading cards. All these guys that got rid of their Bobby Orr cards and put them in the spokes of their cards. Well, that made my Bobby Orr card a lot more valuable, right? Well, if I only can make one picture out of a whole game, that makes that one print that much more special. And like, I've done a lot of traveling. We went out west a couple years ago. We put 1,800 miles on a rental van, and I came back with 1,800 years ago. What 1,800 pictures would have cost me to print, just to buy the film and to develop and everything like that. So, like I said, that's I mean, as far as like the newspaper industry, I can't imagine how much it's really saved, our company. Looking back, darkroom equipment was expensive. Paper, film paper, film, photography paper, all that stuff wasn't cheap. And all of a sudden, I take a card out of my camera, I put it in the computer, and boom, I have all the pictures that I'll need, And especially for like the websites, our website, I try to get as many pictures out there as possible. It used to be, like I said, if I had one good picture, that was great. Now, if I don't have at least 20 or 30 that I can put on the internet to run with our stories, with our copy, I'm disappointed, actually. So
Yeah, I'm an old newspaper guy myself. I was the managing editor of the Fort Covington Sun.
Okay.
And I mean, it was kind of a.
How long did you do that, Dave?
I was in the mid 80s, probably from like 86 to 88.
Okay, so just before my time, yeah.
And we used to go and put our paper together at the Malone Evening Telegram.
Yeah.
So I know all about cutting out the strips and then
the wax and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
The wax. Yeah, running through the wax and placing it on the thing, and then the dark room, and then resizing the photographs and like you said, if you were lucky to get a one good picture, one good photograph of a sporting event, because you could take. And back then you were a little more discriminate, about clicking that shutter.
Yeah.
Because you got real, you got real film in that camera.
Yeah, exactly. If you took 36 pictures, I went too far in my camera. I snapped the film. Then I've got to run to a bathroom, turn all the lights off. And, I've done that more than once when I was, where I had to go make emergency changes to the film and the camera and stuff. Now I never worry about that. The only thing I worry about is running out of battery power,
Or space on your SD card, yeah.
Well, you know what? I've never done that. I've got I don't even know what the size is, but I think it'd be thousands of pictures before I'd really be worried about running out of space. But so you can relate. You can understand.
I can.
I'm
Brings
gonna
back
go,
memories.
I'm gonna go a little nostalgic myself, because as a kid growing up playing sports, and all my brothers did, we always, like you guys said, we waited for my father to get home with the paper. It was either Malone Telegram, Messina, Courier, Press Republican, Watertown Daily Times, and then we listened on the radio. We had two stations that we could hear. Yeah. It was WICY or WMSA, and it was always Sandy Cook. And we always heard that all the time. And you guys are right. Kids today don't have a clue about waiting for that paper, the excitement of waiting for that paper, and cutting out something that has your name on it and actually putting it in a scrapbook. So
it's not in the police blotter.
No, exactly. So I can't imagine Al, what you've seen change. I mean, you're going through the steps now of telling us all the changes, but it's gonna be phenomenal just going from one to the other. And it seems like today is a little bit easier than it was years ago. But do you have as much pleasure in doing it as much as you did back then?
Oh yeah, I've loved my job from day one. Beating the deadline, that challenge and everything like that. The biggest thing for me is the travel. I lived in Ogdensburg. I've lived in Ogdensburg throughout my professional career, and my backyard is Route 56, the Messina South Colton pipeline. So, I've traveled, I don't know how many thousands of miles over my 33 years, but that my goal, my favorite day is when I've gone to 5 different games. I've come back, I've downloaded 400 pictures. I've written up 3 write-ups, 100 inches, like something like that, and I've done it all by deadline. That's fun for me. And thankfully we have so many coaches that cooperate and get us the information, and I don't have to spend much time tracking people down. That's been pretty much right from day one when I've had this job. It's funny how, like, I don't know if funny is the word, but it's kind of nice how when I first started, I was embraced right away by total strangers. Hey, come on in. Yeah, you're the new reporter for the Watertown Times or the Sports. Come on in. It was always very a welcoming atmosphere. I can remember one of the first games I went to as the Courier Courier Freeman guy for Potsdam. And it was a Potsdam Norwood game. And so it would have been like, 88, 89, somewhere in there. And it was up in Norwood. And the gym was, I don't know, you guys remember the old gym in Norwood. It was just, you had to turn your feet to take 3-point shots. It was that kind of a crowded atmosphere. And I got there, thinking I'm on time and stuff. And it was packed. And I got met at the door and, we've reached capacity. You can't come in. I'm like, well, I work for the newspaper. Oh, come on right in. Yeah, you want to find your spot? It was no problem. They found the room for me. So that made my job. That's made my job a lot easier. But it's all relative, right? I mean, everybody's job is the stress from those jobs. That's what you make of it, and that's your own personal challenge. And like I said, I've never had the same night twice. You know what I mean? Like I've never seen the same game twice. I've never whatever. It's always and from one year to the next, you might have the same players on a team from another year, but it's a different year. The other teams have different players, and it's always, that keeps it fresh, keeps it exciting. I'm sure it's the same for Joey as a coach. Every year is different. It's never the same group of kids from one year to the next. There are core kids, yes, but and then all the other teams that you're facing, it's always a different challenge from day to day, and it keeps you on your toes and stuff like that. So.
Well, you brought up a couple of names that I was going to bring up. I had written down Doc, and Doc's coming on next week.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And obviously Goki, the Gokes. One of the comforting things, and Pete and Dave and I, we've gone through this with this show for the last 4 months, is the connection and the connectivity, I guess is the word I want to say. In Section 10 is unbelievable, and that includes you guys in the media. I mean, we expect Al St. Pierre to possibly show up tonight. We expect John Goki to possibly be here tonight, and look forward to seeing Al and John and Doc Shea or Pete and Dave coming to do a game. Those are the things we as coaches and athletic directors, we love that because we know that our kids are getting some exposure. And I just know I've always appreciated our media in Section 10. I think we just do a great job of covering our kids in the whole section, and that has to do with you and Gok and Doc and everybody. So you deserve a lot of credit. You probably don't get the credit you deserve from us, or the thanks that you should get. All of you guys deserve a lot of thanks from us for what you do for us.
Well, thanks. I appreciate hearing that. But, you mentioned just the camaraderie in the sports media, but I mean, the communities themselves. It's rivalries this, rivalries that, but really brought the point home. Newelton girls won their first state tournament. They were getting ready to play the championship game, and we were all down in my younger niece, Olivia, was on that team. St. Pierre, and we were down in Hudson Valley, at the college, and OFA had played in Glens Falls the night before the boys, and they lost. And they came walking in, and the whole Newelton section just stood up, and we clapped for the OFA boys, so, and that's the way it is up here. We really, I seem to find that we take care of our own. We're kind of lucky to live up here. Everybody says you live in the middle of nowhere. I always say I live in the middle of everywhere. I'm 2 hours away from Montreal, one of the great metropolitan cities in the world. I'm an hour away from a national capital where I live in Ogdensburg. I can cross the bridge and be there in 45 minutes. I can skate the world's longest canal. I can go to NHL games. I'm 2 hours away from Syracuse, New York, home of the Orange Men, right? And I've actually, we've had athletes that have played games there. So, that's the only time I've really gone to cover stuff at Syracuse. Danny Trippitt played there back in like 2002. Trevor Scott played there when he was at the SUNY Buffalo or University of Buffalo football team. So, that was kind of a neat experience for me. That's kind of big time but I mean, right in our backyard, we are so spoiled. We have Clarkson University, all our universities, they just have such wonderful facilities. SUNY Potsdam. I mean, I go back to my high school days. I can remember, like, I wasn't a basketball player or anything like that, but I had friends that played basketball, and we'd go over and see sectionals, and it was just awe. You'd walk into that place and it's like, man, this is in 30 minutes away from my house, this cool place. Maxey Hall back then was just something special. And then
Still
when they
is.
built Chiller,
It still is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Obviously, yeah. And Chill Arena. I remember my experiences at Walker Arena. I know everybody loved the charm and all that, but if you sat in the wrong spot or whatever, it wasn't real charming. If you know what I mean. And especially, actually, the press box was I hated the press box because you'd stand there, and when they did the national anthem, the flag was right there at the press box. So the lights were off except the spotlight, and it was coming right into your eyes on the flag during the national anthem. That was a little in there. And I was always worried the thing would fall right out anyways because there were too many people in it. And then when they built Chill Arena, I'm like, oh my God, this is like the Taj Mahal, just an absolutely beautiful facility. And Appleton, I mean, look at SUNY Canton, look at their beautiful facilities. And like I said, St. Lawrence, I mean, just in the 30 years, I mean, you were talking about changes to my job, but I mean, look at the changes at the facilities in just St. Lawrence County alone. I mean, those turf fields that are everywhere now. Look at that the Newell Fieldhouse over at St. Lawrence University. I mean, I don't know that there are too many places like that within 2 hours anywhere. And we got one 20 minutes away. We always laugh. You could land the Goodyear blimp in there if the roof would open. Just so I've learned when I moved back from college days and stuff like that we do really live in a beautiful area. The St. Lawrence River, is an anchor and just absolutely beautiful. We're an hour away from the Adirondack Mountains, Adirondack Park, bigger than how many national parks put together. I think more and more, I just wish people would not take our area for granted. People that come in, that younger people, you know what I mean? So many people have left this area. When I was in school, they got out of school, they moved away. What's the old song? If I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. Well, if you can make it in the North Country, if you can make a career of things, you're pretty lucky, because not a lot of people have been able to do that. And it's another reason I count myself fortunate to be up here. And once again, the people, everybody that you deal with, it's just a great place to live.
So talk a little bit about how you ended up at McGill. Was that a target? Was that where you wanted?
You know what? I was like I said, I was raised on a dairy farm. So I learned to work. We'd get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. We'd milk cows, off to school on the bus by 7:15, 7:30. Come home, do some chores, and then that was the only place I applied to. I was a Quebec citizen, Quebec national, because I was born there. I'm still a Canadian citizen, proudly, and that was the only place I applied, and I got in and I went there. And I don't know if McGill University is basically an English-speaking. Well, I hate to say the word bubble with everything that's going on, but it's really its own little community right in the heart of Montreal, French-speaking Montreal. I always joke with friends, I spoke more French in my house over the course of a week than I think I spoke in 5 years at McGill. Everything was in English, and when we went out to restaurants and things like that, it was always, if they heard my English, they spoke English. It was bilingual. Most of the friends that I made in college I lived in the dorms. The dorms were all located at the base of Mount Royal at the top of University Street. And most of the people that I got to be friends with in college were either from Ontario or the States. So, you know, it was all English speaking, a very liberal atmosphere. You know, I don't know if I ever sat down with anybody to chart out my courses or anything like that. And the film and communication curriculum was new to McGill when I went there. So that was something, yeah, always interested me, movies and things like that. So I got into that. But, you know, that's where I kind of figured out I wasn't going to be a farmer when I got out of college. You know, I did love some things of farming. I loved driving tractors and harvest time and stuff like that. And actually, we had a beautiful barn, our first dairy barn. It had gigantic arched roofs for the haymow, so there were no posts or anything like that, and it was a beautiful hardwood floor. So I mean, when the hay was cleared out in the spring, we would clear it out. We'd play hockey up there. We would make boards out of the bales of hay. And I mean, we'd have to wait until the cows were milked because we made too much noise and that would bother them. But we'd turn the lights on. We'd play for hours up there. We'd get friends to come out. And, you know, so I was never really into organized sports much as far as playing because of the farm responsibilities. I did play minor hockey one year as a sophomore. I ended up being like the starting goalie for a hodgepodge group of guys, you know, looking back. And then when I went to McGill, I played intramurals. I don't know if you can see in the background here, I got my old goalie mask way up there at the top.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I'm an old goalie. I've actually played right up until a couple years ago. I didn't play last year for whatever reason to get the opportunity, but I loved all sports growing up. You know, baseball. I was my older brother and sister had moved away by the time I was a teenager, and you know, I had three younger brothers and sisters, and we had neighborhood friends, and we got every night after chores we would play softball, kickball, something. You know, we'd do something. So you know, I've always had that interest in sports, and then getting the journalism job right out of college and a little bit of experience there, writing and deadlines and things like that, kind of put the two of them together. Yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question.
Absolutely.
But McGill was a wonderful experience. Like I said, I got to meet some wonderful people there. Montreal's an awesome city. Didn't hurt being a Montreal Canadiens fan either. My last year I was there, I lived actually 2 blocks from the old Montreal Forum.
Oh,
It's
yeah?
funny, I only ever saw one Montreal Canadian walk in the street. I saw Bob Gainey one day walking down St. Catherine Street. And I don't know if you guys remember who Bob Gainey was.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
23.
You know, on the ice, I never realized he walked by me, and I'm like, man, that guy is a good sized fella. You know, he's like 6'1", 6'2", and he was still put together. And that was the latter stages of his career back in like 84, 85. You know, since I've left Montreal, the city itself, when I was there were a lot of areas that were dilapidated, especially down where like the new rink that the Canadians play. I call it new. It's probably about 25 years old now. But when they built that rink, that was part of like a big urban renewal project for them. There was an old market area. The old international train station is called Windsor Station, was down in that area. And I mean, I remember walking down there and I'm like, wow, you know, I wouldn't want to walk. Not that it was sketchy. It was just, you were afraid things were going to fall in on you. You know, it was just all boarded up. And then, like I said, in the time, even 20 years after I left Montreal, you could see they went through and made a lot of changes, built that rink. But I'm happy to be back home, to be honest with you. Big city life, I was not a big city guy. I learned, you know, that's the biggest thing I learned, I think, in being in Montreal is, you know, just being elbow to elbow with people, walking down the street, strangers. You never know, you know, what's going to happen. And, you know, just I don't have to worry about here at Ogdensburg or whatever, the North Country.
I know we would have been happy and still would be happy and keep hoping that there would be a nice, beautiful downtown ballpark built in Montreal and bring our beloved Expos back.
Oh, I know. You know, I was there. We would go to games in the summer. It was like $5 for bleacher seats. You know, I lived there one summer, and we actually went to see some games. And I think one of my biggest, you know, I hate to say this, but my biggest sports disappointments was the year of the baseball strike.
Oh,
the Expos were having a great year, and the Yankees were having a great year. And I'm like, awesome! I'm going to go see a World Series game at the Olympic Stadium, the Expos and the Yankees, and then they pulled the rug out from under us. And you know,
Yep.
I don't think, especially in Montreal, I don't think baseball ever recovered from that in Montreal. You know, just I would go to games there, and they'd flash the attendance. There'd be 8,000 people there. You know, that was it. And it's just too bad because they had some really good teams back in the early 80s. You know, Steve Rogers, Warren Cromartie, Andre Dawson, who was who was the other guy that got Tim Raines, Rock
Tim Raines.
Raines. You know, they had the Martinez guy pitching.
Yep. Gary
They
Carter.
were just an awesome team. Yeah,
Larry-
who's the third baseman that was
Larry
really
Parrish.
good?
Larry Parrish.
Wallace.
Trout.
What was
Tim
it?
Wallach.
Tim Wallach.
Yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy. Yeah, and Gary Carter as a catcher. You
Oh,
know. So yeah, they kind of pulled the rug out. Like I said, I mean, 2 hours away from maybe watching a World Series game, and
Ellis
so I kind of got
Valentine.
cheated on that.
All these names.
Yeah.
Ellis-
Oh yeah. They were,
The big arm and Ellis Valentine who could throw a rope to the plate.
yeah.
You
My
know,
favorite though.
I hear you saying all this, and it's getting real nostalgic. And I remember going. We grew up going to Jerry Park, and then for the longest
Yeah.
time, and then the Olympics happened, and then when they announced that they were going to transition from Jerry Park to Olympic Stadium, and we went to Olympic Stadium, and it was like, wow, what night and day, and what a phenomenal place.
Yeah.
And it's too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they used to fill the place there too. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
it was nothing to get 35,000 people on a weeknight in there, and that doesn't sound big these days, but it is. And it's too bad that you're right, Joey. It's too bad we couldn't bring the Expos back. I know there was a big push on to do that, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not.
Well, look what they end up doing. You know, they moved to Washington and win the World
Right.
Series. So.
Right? Yeah.
And I don't know if everybody remember, or a lot of people remember too, Montreal was like the stepping stone for Jackie Robinson. He played for the Montreal Royals before he was brought up to the Dodgers.
Yep.
You know, and that's, you know, the one thing about Montreal, it's a very, you know, that's the best. That's the reason why he broke in Montreal, is because it's a very receptive city. You know, it doesn't matter what your nationality was or color or anything like that. You know, so you could see why he broke the color barrier up there first before you came to the States. But one funny story, kind of a crisscross of sports. And when I was at McGill, I lived in the dorms, and the football stadium for the school was right below the dorm. So you'd walk across the football field to go to like the next little mall that was next door to go to classes or something. And I remember walking across one time, and there was a football team practicing. And, you know, I was kind of oblivious to what was going on. It was the Edmonton Eskimos. And one of the guys that was being interviewed was Warren Moon. You know, and then who goes on to be like one of the all-time great. I mean, just to show how, you know, things have changed. You think I'd be able to walk, you know, 20 feet from Warren Moon, you know, before a Grey Cup game, you know, nobody said a word to me or anything. And I went back to the dorm. They're like, "Oh man, you saw Warren Moon?" I'm like, "Who's he?" You know, I didn't have any idea who he was. I found out. Yeah, I learned later who he was. I watched the TV news that night. I'm like, wait a minute, those are the guys that I was just walking by, and you know, didn't even realize it at the time that, you know, he went on to the Houston Oilers, right? That's where he got his teeth in the NFL.
My father always said that the Expos was always a stepping stone for the next team, wherever that player wanted to go, because financially, Canada couldn't match the payrolls that the States teams were, so they didn't have nothing to keep them there. So
and the exchange, you know, the dollar exchange. You know, you're paying back in the day, $1 million was a lot, but if you were in Canada playing, that was $750,000. It doesn't sound as sexy or whatever you want to call it as $1 million. That was a big problem, you know. So,
well, I think at some point Montreal. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon, but I think they will. This probably isn't helping, because I'm sure they're not. You know, all the sports aren't going to be financially able to start expanding again. But Montreal is the biggest market that doesn't have a baseball team. So I just find it hard to believe they won't be back there at some point in some capacity, some way, somehow.
Yeah, you wonder why, like, these teams that aren't cutting it in the States that are pulling in 10,000, well, nobody. Have you guys been watching baseball on TV?
A little
On
bit.
TBS?
Yeah.
You notice how they have blackouts? Well,
What's
how is
that?
it that they have blackouts for pro baseball when there are no fans?
They had
Yeah.
one
The whole
last
point
night.
of a blackout I just don't get that.
They had one last night for the Yankee game on ESPN.
Yeah.
I ended up going on the Yes Network to watch it. I got the Yes Network on
Okay.
right now. So yeah,
Okay.
I don't understand how they're having blackouts. They can't fill the stands.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
it's
that.
the only way you can watch the game. I don't get it either.
Right. Yeah. Anyways, that's the pro stuff. I stay away from that. I'm, like I said, high school and collegiate sports. That's our bread and butter, and hopefully I can keep doing that through what we're going through right now. I mean, it's just crazy. I went to Chris Rose was on a couple weeks. He had him on last month. Thankfully he had his lacrosse league going, and I see that as kind of a test case for sports up here. If they can do that, why not maybe do some other things? Hopefully the state looked at that a little bit, because I don't know that they got any positive tests or anything like that. Hopefully we're isolated enough from the rest of the state that they will make a little more of an accommodation for us up here to start sports, as opposed to some of these bigger areas that you're more susceptible to having somebody catch something.
Well, we're supposed to get an announcement, next week. We're supposed to have some
Next
guidance.
week?
We're supposed to have some guidance. My AD meeting was moved from tomorrow to next Tuesday, and I think that is in accordance with Governor Cuomo's announcement on whatever he's going to say, with whatever guidance he's going to give us, and then we'll take it from there. But as of right now, in my mind, we'll be starting September 21st. That's what I have to go on. But
no,
I'll believe it when I see it.
Right. Everybody's on the same, holding pattern for stuff. But, I did talk to Carl on Monday, Carl Normandin, and, he had a very valid point. One of the things they want to talk about is doing like some, not some contact practices like just calisthenics, things like that to get kids back in shape. Because, he's right. Most of these kids have been sitting around, not doing anything, interacting with other people physically, doing drills and things like that on their own. That's one thing, but being with others, and if you go a week of practice and try to start playing football games and soccer games, you're opening yourself up to some injuries and stuff like that. And hopefully that would be that'd be a step in the right direction if they could get coaches to go with their teams and just do distancing, but do exercises and drills and things like that where you're not close to each other, but just to get together and get back into that routine a little bit. I hope that goes through. I really don't see the point in opening practice for a week and then going and starting playing, because these kids haven't been able to, get together at all, much less bump into each other and have physical contact and that kind of stuff. So who knows?
Yeah.
Cross our fingers.
And for all of us, as basketball coaches, we're used to having open gyms. I haven't been in a gym since end of March. So,
yeah. Oh, how's the pool coming? How's the pool project coming?
The last time I was over there, it looks pretty good. I think they're probably pretty close to putting the water in. It's been 2 weeks since I've been in there, but I think that was the last step. They're probably ready to put the water in and a new scoreboard. So.
And it's just like I said, that league, that lacrosse league, if they follow the guidelines and things like that, you got to wonder why they wouldn't be able to do more recreational leagues between now and the start of school to kind of fill that gap. I'm surprised. Have you heard anything like any of the communities trying to have soccer leagues going, or late summer?
I haven't, because soccer is still not one of the approved. I don't think one of the approved sports that is allowed. Chris was able to do his lacrosse because it was apparently non-contact box lacrosse. But I don't know if the governor, I don't think he's updated his list of approved sports since way back when. So I don't think soccer right now is still on the table as a sport that you can play. Now, maybe that all changes next week. We're hopeful that it all changes next week when he does make his announcement. So, but I'm not really not sure. Cause like basketball, as far as I know, I don't even think any AAU tournaments anywhere within the state was being played when it came to basketball, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
I did hear of some tournaments like in Pennsylvania and Vermont, and that teams around, I don't know if any teams around here did it, but I heard about teams that were getting so antsy. We're going to try to, hey, we'll travel down to Pennsylvania and play.
I've heard that too. Like I just saw on the internet today that, athletes are leaving their states to go to other states to play sports because they can't play in college in their home state and stuff like that. So, we'll move on. It's given me a chance to touch base with some people I hadn't touched base with in a long time. Work more on feature stories and things like that. That takes up a lot of time. I mean, on a nightly basis when the seasons are in full swing, 5-6 hours sitting at a machine, typing in, answering phones, taking care of pictures and things like that. Now, I've had to change. The change of pace has been the toughest thing to deal with. Just taking my time, making sure I get feature stories right. That's been the biggest change with the COVID anyways, what we're doing now. I guess we've been lucky though. Our staff at the Times, we have had a local story in our paper every day for like 156 days now, local sports stories, maybe more, but it's a different world, guys. And it's going to be like this. I'm afraid it's going to be like this for a while. I really do. I mean,
I think you're
I know
right.
we're isolated up here, but I just hope it doesn't creep up on us. But the rest of the country, a lot of parts of the country just don't seem to want to pay attention to what's going on or take it seriously. And I really don't understand that. I've taken it pretty seriously right from day one. And I know most of the people that I've encountered in, stores and things like that, same thing, we're already pretty socially distant up here as it is. You know what I mean? Like my day to day, when I go to a store, it's maybe with 15 other people in the store. It's not crowds, it's not elbow to elbow people and all the time. So, hopefully that's one of the reasons things are staying as, just as level as they are up here. Hopefully it keeps going that way. When school's open, that's a whole other Pandora's box, I think. We'll see. Who knows? 2 weeks after they open school, if we get 10 cases, is that going to be too many to keep schools open up here? I don't know. We're averaging like 1 case every 2 weeks in St. Lawrence County, so that's pretty good. Anyways.
My personal opinion is I think my gut's telling me that's why the September 21st is the start date. They want to see school open, get a week or two under your belts, and let's see if anything happens. And if not, then right. I think they'll progress. I think they'll try to get fall sports in. I think fall sports will be sectional only. I don't think there'll be any state involvement for the fall. Right. But at least it's something for the kids. So
yeah.
And if it works,
exactly.
And if it works, I'm going to assume that our winter sports season will start on time as of now, November 16th, with everything in play. That's what we're hopeful for. So.
Yeah, because I don't really see a lot of point in playing football and soccer games after Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a little chilly up here.
Yeah. Well, Al, hey, we really appreciate you coming on. It's nice having a media personality come on, so can talk a little more topical things. And we know obviously you are in your bunker at home somewhere, and with those
this is my official craft room and work room. I had to combine the two when they closed their office in Canton. So I'd call it my man cave, but it's more of a dungeon than anything.
I'm glad that you signified that those were your hockey masks, because they sure as hell look like Jason masks.
Well, you know what? Jason's first mask was a Cooper, just like this one up here that I have, the original Jason mask. So.
Well, man, we can't thank you enough for coming on, and again, we really appreciate it. We hope, just like I hope for Pete and Dave, that they can get back to work broadcasting, that you can get back to work roaming around watching games. So.
All right. Well, I look forward to that. But hey, I appreciate you guys taking the time to invite me. You know, maybe another time we can do some more reminiscing about some of the things that I've actually covered in my 33 years.
Sounds good to us.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of them.
Great.
We'll schedule another show anytime, Al.
All right. Well, hey, nice seeing you guys again. And I look forward to your next shows. I've been trying to keep up on them.
Well, we appreciate it. That's going to be it tonight.
Take care, guys.
ESS, Empire State Sports, and the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. Our host, Joey Riom, Dave Broughton, myself, and thanking our special guest, Al St. Pierre. Good night, everybody, and stay safe.